Hi, I am Kimmy with On William Street, and we are here to help you become a more confident quilter, from the piecing to the quilting and everything in between. So this week we are working on block 7 of our annual quilt along. Everything that we're going to talk about today, we do have written out in a blog post. So you'll see instructions for cutting out your white, so you want to make sure to head over and grab that, and then diagrams and things as well. So if you have any questions or want that to look at while you're putting the block together, don't forget to hit the link in the description below the video and you can find all that information. Also, while you're there, check out our shop and see all of our fun modern quilting projects. So this month we have our flying geese block, and this one uses one of our favorite methods, the 4 at a time flying geese, so it goes together really fun and quick. So a couple of tips that we just kind of want to go over for all the blocks that you're going to be working on. When you're cutting them out, we really do recommend you starch. We kind of talked about that briefly, starching them. If you starch your pieces, especially because we're dealing with a lot of bias edges and a lot of small blocks, it's going to help everything to kind of lay a little bit flatter, a little bit nicer. So we recommend starching, but always starch before you cut your pieces out, because starching can actually shrink your fabric. So make sure that you cut it out, you starch it, and then cut out all your different pieces that you need for the blocks. The second tip is we do want to make sure you've got a true 1/4 inch seam. Check your 1/4 inch seam on your machine. If it's too big, your blocks are going to end up a little bit small. So check that your 1/4 inch is a true 1/4 inch. We do have a video kind of going over that we'll link so you can see that as well. And then we're going to recommend you use a scant for these blocks because they are small. Some of them have a lot of pieces. You can get you can lose some size there if you do a full. So we're going to recommend a scant 1/4 inch. And then as you are trimming things up, as you're cutting off dog ears, as you're trimming off, things that are sticking out, make sure that you're only trimming what's sticking out, that you aren't cutting into the block and making the block smaller. If you do, by the time you get to the end, you're going to find that you're, 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch too small. And you're kind of now having to kind of struggle to stretch to make it work. So make sure that you're not cutting extra into the block. And then when you're pressing, also press, don't iron. We don't want to be stretching and distorting the fabric. So make sure that you're pressing it to keep everything as flat as possible. So to cut out block number 7, we're going to be making some flying geese. And we're going to be using our very favorite 4 at a time, no waste flying geese method. So we're going to need 2 great big squares. Well, relatively for this quilt out of our orange. So we're going to do 2 at 4 1/4 inches. And then 1 more. And then we have our white, and we're going to grab 8 of our 2 3/8 inch squares of the white to put this together. So for the 4 at a time flying geese, we're going to grab 2 of our smaller triangles, and they're going to go on opposite sides of our big one, opposite corners. Then we're going to grab our little ruler and our marking pen and just draw a line from corner to corner across both of those triangles, both of those squares. Now, just like we would with a half square triangle, we're just going to sew 1/4 of an inch on both sides. And we're going to repeat that with both of our squares, both of our big squares. If you wait and cut them all out, all of your colors out at once, and then sew, this would be a great opportunity for some chain piecing as well to really speed things up. So now that we have sewn those, we're going to cut it in half on that line. Then we're going to take these over and we are going to iron them before we do the next step. And when we are ironing our flying geese, we like to make sure that we iron them up like this. So you're just going to leave the seam going that way and just iron both of these up. Now take another one of our white squares, place it on the leftover corner, draw your line, And then again, just go and sew a 1/4 inch seam on both sides of this line and repeat that with all 4 of your triangles. So now again, we're just going to go ahead and cut this on that line, take it over, iron these up, and then we can trim off the little dog ears and our flying geese will be done. Now we are ready to go ahead and sew our flying geese units together. So we're going to be sewing 2 together at a time, and we're going to be making 4 sets of 2 flying geese. So when you're sewing these together, the easiest way to do it is line them up, and then you're going to sew with the one that comes to the point on top. That way, you can make sure that as you're sewing right where the 2 stitches come together. And you're actually going to sew just above where they come together so you don't lose your point. If you sew below or right on it, then when you fold it back and iron it, that point will be gone. So just make sure that you're keeping your stitch line right above where those 2 stitch lines cross. And that's going to make a nice sharp point in your flying geese. Now that all 4 of our flying geese are done, we're going to go ahead and lay out the block. So if you need a diagram for this, don't forget to check the blog post. When we're lining these up, we want to make sure that all of the flying geese are pointing outwards. So it's like they're all pointing towards the edges of the block. Then after you've lined them up, just sew the top 2 together. Then we're going to sew the bottom 2 together, and then we'll sew all 4 of them together. So our block is done. And just a quick reminder, if you're having trouble with the points, sew with the flying goose point up so that you can kind of watch that seam, fudge it just a little bit if you need to make it a little bit smaller, a little bit bigger. We do that sometimes so that we can get that point nice there. And then also when you're ironing it, just try to keep it ironed kind of away from those points. It's going to help those points stand out a little bit more. So whenever you can, iron away from the point. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to reach out. We are here to help. So we are more than happy to answer any questions as we go throughout the rest of the year and put this quilt together. You can find all the directions in our blog post. So that's going to have any cutting instructions if it's easier to see it kind of written out. You can find that there, cutting instructions for the white and diagrams for putting this block together. So don't forget to head over and check that out. Also, you can visit our shop and see all of our fun projects and patterns and things that we're working on there. You can always find us and follow us on Facebook and Instagram, where we post all of our projects and the things that we're working on. And we'll see you next time.